April 14, 1865, a bullet changed American history forever. On this day, an American 26-year-old stage actor named John Wilkes Booth assassinated America's 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. But why did a young actor assassinate the 16th president of the United States? Did he do this alone, or did someone help him? Where were the Abraham Lincoln's guards? What happened where after the 4-year Civil War ended, Lincoln was considered the face of a new horizon? But why did he have to die? Let's find out through today's video why Abraham was killed. This man didn't kill Lincoln suddenly. He had been planning this for months. But at first, he wasn't planning to kill Lincoln. He was planning to kidnap him. John Wilkes Booth wanted to kidnap Lincoln because he believed it could help the Confederacy. His plan was to capture Lincoln and take him to Richmond, Virginia, where he could be exchanged for Confederate prisoners of war. This would have straightened the South's army and forced Lincoln to negotiate peace on terms favorable to the Confederacy. The Confederate Army was the military force of the South during the American Civil War, fighting against the Union, the North. The Confederacy, made up of 11 southern states, seceded from the United States to preserve slavery, defend states' rights, and maintain their way of life. Led by generals like Robert E. Lee, the Confederate Army put up fierce resistance but ultimately surrendered in April 1865, bringing the war to an end. John Wilkes Booth was not an official Confederate soldier. He was a strong supporter of the Confederacy. He was involved in secret activities, including smuggling and spying, and used his fame as an actor to move freely between the North and South. Booth was part of a larger network of Confederate sympathizers who sought to undermine the Union war effort. His original plan was not assassination but kidnapping. He and his conspirator hoped to capture Lincoln and use him as leverage to negotiate for the South. However, after the Confederacy's defeat became inevitable, Booth saw Lincoln's continued leadership as a threat to Southern honor and decided to kill him. He saw himself as a hero avenging the South, but his words also show bitterness, paranoia, and misplaced confidence in his cause. While Booth was planning to kill him, Lincoln had a dream about his death 2 weeks earlier, and he told his wife and some of his close friends about it. Lincoln was deeply disturbed by the dream and told his wife about it. Mary Todd Lincoln, who believed in omens, was terrified, but Lincoln dismissed as just as a dream. 14 April was a beautiful day. That day the Civil War had just ended, and Lincoln was relieved. General Robert E. Lee had surrendered on April 9, 1865, effectively bringing the war to a close. Lincoln wanted to celebrate and relax, so on the morning of the assassination, Lincoln met with the cabinet and asked the Union to fix it again, and in the afternoon, he went out to see the theater. That day Lincoln was in normal mood. He didn't eat anything special that day. He ate mock turtle soup, roast Virginia fowl, yams, and a cauliflower before leaving for the theater. He never once thought that this theater was going to be his last. In theater, Lincoln and his wife sat in their fourth theater box watching Our American Cousin. Mary told Lincoln whispered to him about how happy she felt, and Lincoln replied with a smile, "We will visit the Holy Land and see those places hallowed by the footsteps of the Savior." Those were his last known words before Booth shot him. Lincoln's bodyguard that night was John Frederick Parker. He was a Washington, D.C. police officer, but he had a reputation for being irresponsible and unreliable. He was supposed to wait outside, but he was irresponsible, so he stepped down from the post, leaving Abraham Lincoln unprotected. Around 10 p.m., Booth entered the theater and moved toward the presidential box without suspicion. He waited for a loud moment in the play to cover the sound of his gunshot. At 10:15 p.m., Booth stepped inside the box and moved behind Lincoln, who was laughing at the play. He pulled out a small Derringer pistol, which is a single-shot weapon, and fired one bullet into the back of Lincoln's head, behind his left ear. Lincoln slammed forward, unconscious but still breathing. Major Redbone tried to stop Booth, but Booth stabbed him in the arm with a knife and jumped off the balcony onto the stage. As he landed, Booth shouted in Latin, "Sic semper tyrannis." It's a Latin word, which means "thus always to tyrants." He then escaped through the back of the theater, got on a horse, and fled the city. The doctor immediately rushed to save Lincoln. He was still alive, so he was taken to the hospital. Lincoln never regained consciousness and died the next morning at 7:22 a.m. Now it's time to catch Booth. After assassinating Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth escaped from Ford's Theater through a back alley. mounted a waiting horse, and rode out of Washington, D.C. On the street, he met another friend of his whom was a conspirator like him. Then they ran away together. They stopped at Dr. Samuel Marr's house, where Booth's broken leg was treated, the leg that was broken when he jumped out of the theater. Booth and his friend hid in the woods for days, trying to reach Virginia, where they hoped to find safety among Confederate supporters. On April 15, 1865, 10,000 Union soldiers were sent to find Booth. The government also offered a $100,000 reward for Booth's capture. Even though they didn't get any such benefits, many witnesses say they moved south. On April 16, 1865, Booth and his friend took refuge in a barn on Garrett Farm in Virginia. Union soldiers surrendered the farm and ordered them to surrender. His friend gave up, but Booth refused and said, "I will not be taken alive." The soldiers set the barn on fire to flush Booth out. Booth remained inside, armed with a rifle. Sergeant Boston Corbett shot Booth through the neck, paralyzing him. Booth was dragged out and even died 2 hours later, muttering, "Useless, useless." His body was taken back to Washington, D.C. and buried secretly to prevent his grave from becoming a shrine. But Booth didn't just plan to kill Lincoln that day. He organized a coordinated assassination plot to discredit the US government by also targeting Vice President Andrew Johnson and Secretary of State William H. Seward. Booth assigned 2 of his co-conspirators to kill top government officials at the same time as Lincoln's assassination. There was a plan that Booth will kill Lincoln at the theater. George Atzerodt will kill Vice President Andrew Johnson in his hotel, and Lewis Powell, aka Louis Penn, will kill Secretary of State William H. Seward in his home. The goal was to throw the US government into chaos and possibly give the South a chance to regroup after the Civil War. But Lincoln was the only one who died in this plan. Secretary of State Seward was survived, and Vice President became the next President of the United States. On the other hand, Powell and Atzerodt were hanged on July 7, 1865. During the execution, Lewis Powell said, "I am innocent of the charge upon me." He remained calm but looked resigned to his fate. George Atzerodt's last word was, "May we all meet in the other world. God take me now." This execution was the largest high-profile execution in the history of the United States. The North overwhelmingly supported the Hankins, believing in Lincoln's death needed to be avenged. The South had mixed feelings. Some saw Booth as a misguided hero, but many disapproved of the assassination, realizing it had worsened their situation. But what I saw here, Booth and his conspirator were all radicalized by their beliefs, showing how hatred, misinformation, and political extremism can lead to deadly consequences. Booth thought he was a patriot, but in reality, he became a villain who changed America for the worse. So Mark Twain said, "A lie can travel halfway around the world, while the truth is putting on its rules." Booth and his conspirator were influenced by false narratives, that Lincoln was a tyrant, that the Confederacy could still rise, and that assassination would help their cause. They acted on lies rather than facts. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to know how the British conquered India, then watch this video. Thank you.